Hello, it's Bruce Huhmann again. Today we're going to compare the philosophy of ethics, which you might learn in a philosophy class, with ethical decision making, which is one of the subjects we'll focus on in this class. Have you ever heard of the trolley car problem? This is a thought experiment developed by Phillippa in her 1967 paper, Abortion and the Doctrine of the Double Effect. This is how the trolley car problem goes. A runaway trolley is barreling down the tracks. Ahead, on the tracks, there are 5 workmen with their backs to the trolley. They're working on the tracks and they can't hear the train coming because of the noise that they're making. The trolley is headed straight for them and they're going to be killed. You happen to be standing beside the switch that can route the trolley to a different track, which is a nice bit of luck, right? Unfortunately, you notice that there's one person working on the side track. Now you have 2 options. First, you could do nothing, and the trolley will kill the 5 people on the main track. Or, second, you could throw the switch to divert the trolley onto the side track, where it will kill 1 person. So, which one is the correct choice to make? Now, some people say that pulling the lever means that you took an action and have therefore killed someone. And so they say that's obviously wrong. And for those people, doing nothing lets 5 people die, which is sad, but it's purely an accidental death. Now, others say that because you are beside the switch and can do something, you have an ethical obligation to act. And by not doing anything, you sentence 5 people to their deaths, which is clearly wrong. Now, there are lots of variations and additions which have been proposed by other philosophers, and mostly these have been done to show that people are inconsistent in the philosophy they choose to follow from situation to situation. For example, most people will say you should throw the switch to save 5 lives by sacrificing the one. But philosophers then might say, well, what if instead of standing next to a switch, you were standing next to a fat man, and he is so fat that if you pushed him onto the tracks in front of the runaway trolley, you could save all the workmen. Would you do that? Well, of course, most people would say no, they'd not do that. And then philosophers would criticize them for making inconsistent reasoning. When it comes to the switch, you're quite willing to sacrifice one for many, but not when it comes to the fat man. Philosophers add these variations and additions and ask these kinds of questions because they're trying to figure out what makes pushing someone to their death different from pulling a switch that means someone else will die. Philosophers care about the fact that people are inconsistent in their philosophy and how they reason, because they're looking at it from one of several particular philosophical theories or standpoints or viewpoints. For example, utilitarian philosophers say that you should do the most good for the greatest number. Therefore, it makes logical and ethical sense to kill the one to save the 5. This is a sacrifice for the greater good. But philosophers who are promoting virtue ethics ask, what would the virtuous person do? For Christians, it might be, what would Jesus do? For philosophers, it might be, what would Socrates do? Or which action would build my character and help me become a more virtuous person? Philosophers who are trying to follow Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative, which says, respect the dignity of each person, are stymied. Killing one person doesn't respect him, but killing the 5 doesn't respect them either. Philosophers like the trolley car problem because it gives lots of insights into how people think about ethical issues. Something we haven't talked about, but that you might be familiar with from the Confiteor prayer, which is a prayer said by Catholics, Lutherans, and some other religious groups. It states that I've sinned in thought, word, and deed, in what I have done, and in what I have failed to do. Like I say, you might be familiar with this. And even though it's a religious text, it points to another ethical idea. The idea that doing nothing can be as unethical as taking a wrong action. We would call this a sin of omission. If I take no action, I've committed a sin of omission by allowing 5 people to be killed when I could have stopped it. Sins of omission are contrasted with sins of commission. Sins of commission involve taking an action. So if I take the action of changing tracks, I have committed a sin of commission by choosing to kill someone. Either way, it's an ethical dilemma because a wrong is going to occur no matter what I choose. The question is, which is the greater wrong? Now, you might be thinking, well, why do philosophers think about these kinds of things? What's the point? How does this help me make actual decisions in my life? Well, it doesn't really, at least not directly, because that's not the point of philosophy of ethics. Like I say, the point of philosophy of ethics is to understand how people approach these ethical problems. But you might be saying, but I have to make decisions every day, and those decisions have ethical consequences. That's what this course is about. This is not a course in the philosophy of ethics. Some of the purpose of this course is to help you make better decisions. So in healthcare, doctors and nurses must make decisions, sometimes in a matter of moments, that will affect the patient for the rest of his life and may even end his life. In government, people must make decisions that will benefit one party over another. Now, of course, some people say, well, government shouldn't pick winners and losers, but they do it all the time. What these people mean is that government should set up a system of rules needed for a capitalist system in which market forces will pick the winners and losers. But setting up these pro-market rules is one way government can decide how winners and losers are chosen. Another way of setting this up would be a command economy where the government says this entity is going to be charged with handling this and directly chooses who does the actions. But either way, the government is still choosing winners and losers, and it isn't just in big things. Say that one neighbor wants to rezone his property as industrial so that he can rent it to a foundry. And his neighbors don't want the loss of their property values, the noise, the smoke, the pollution. And so the County Zoning Commission, in its hearings, has to consider this rezoning issue. It'll listen to both sides, and then they have to choose. One party is going to win and be happy with the decision. The other party is going to lose, and they're going to be unhappy. And this happens every day in government at every level: local, state, and federal. In business, we have to make decisions too. Do you make one product or another? Do you market your product to children or not? Where do you locate your factories? Do you use more expensive organic ingredients or less expensive mainstream ones? Every decision has possible ethical implications that should be recognized and considered. When running an organization, we have lots of decisions. Who do I hire? Do I give more weight in hiring to a minority for this job? Do I make my employees take a drug test? Do I make new hires show me their Facebook page during the interview? Do I monitor my employees' cell phones and internet use? And then we have individual decisions that we have to make, big ones. I lost my job, I can't afford food, my kids are hungry. Do I steal to feed them? And then little ones, the cashier gave me too much change back. Do I keep it or do I give it back to her? So many decisions, so many ethical problems. I can't sit around and ponder them all from all angles forever. I need to make a good decision, then move on because more decisions are coming. Well, that's part of what this class is about too. How can I develop rules so that I can quickly make good decisions? In a way, the relationship between the philosophy of ethics and ethical decision making is like the relationship between pure science and applied science. The purpose of pure science is to expand the boundaries of what is known, to add new knowledge. Now, some people criticize pure science and say, oh, those scientists in their ivory towers, they're just working on things that are unrelated to real-world problems. These people don't understand the purpose of pure science. Pure science is not done in direct response to a real-world problem. It's about discovering and adding to the store of human knowledge. And that's very important to solving real-world problems in the end. We saw that during the COVID pandemic. For 10 years, we had developed the technology to do mRNA vaccines. So when COVID-19 came out, it didn't take us 3 years to develop a new vaccine, which it usually does. We were able to develop a vaccine quickly in just a matter of months because we already had the technology to do it. But that technology development was done as pure science. There was no problem to solve at that time, but when the problem came up, we already had something on the shelf that we could use and use it quickly. Now, applied science is the science of solving real-world problems. Someone will come to the scientist and say, we have this issue and it needs a solution. If pure science has advanced the frontiers of knowledge enough, then the applied science can look around in the body of existing knowledge and fairly quickly come up with a solution. For example, in medical science, a patient has a particular illness and comes to the physician who's never seen this illness before. The physician turns to the body of existing knowledge, what she learned in medical school or what is published in the academic journals in medicine, and comes up with a treatment. But if pure science has not advanced the field far enough, well, then there's no answer already out there, and an effective treatment is not readily available. When the pure science has not been done and a problem must still be solved, it's much more difficult. So the physician begins looking for a treatment for this patient. Maybe it's her son, so she's very motivated to find a solution to the illness. But it can take a long time. Sadly, maybe the child dies before she can find a solution. If only the pure science had been done she could have had this body of knowledge to draw upon to help her son solve a practical need.